most of the time, whenever I've really spoken to real estate agents, like they're all just so passionate in a different way. There's a reason why they're doing what they're doing, and share it. There's a story.
Hello and welcome to episode 84 of the Smart Agents Podcast. My name is Michael Walter and I'll be your host. In today's episode, we are joined by Claire Bahn, personal brand strategist and CEO of the Claire Bahn Group. Over the course of the last 10 years, she has been helping high-achieving entrepreneurs, business founders, and executives create their best personal brand. Throughout our conversation, Claire shares tips for real estate agents of any experience level to grow their market share by building a strong personal brand. Now, before we get on to the day's featured interview, make sure to subscribe to the Smart Agents Podcast. You can find the show on all major podcasting platforms such as Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and now Amazon Music. Also, if you or someone else on your team has an awesome story or tip to share with our community, send us a message at feedback@smartagents.com. We're always on the lookout for new stories to share. All right, let's get on to the day's featured interview with Claire Bahn. I've included a link to her website in the episode description. Yeah, so we'll just kind of get rolling. If you could just kind of introduce yourself to us a little bit, where you're at in the country and what you do.
So my name is Claire Bahn, and I am a personal brand strategist and the CEO of Claire Bahn Group. Basically, we are an omnichannel marketing and branding business. We help executives, we help real estate agents, we help just a bunch of people build their personal brand so they get authority, influence, and trust. And they get clients coming directly to them, kind of automatically rather than kind of pursuing them. So that's what I do. I am in Los Angeles.
Awesome. What got you started in the personal branding and wanting to help people out with that?
I'll start from the beginning. So I was in New York and I did marketing and branding for financial services firms. I also did software companies, B2B. So I learned a lot about marketing and branding, and I always wanted to go into acting. So I went into acting, took a lot of classes and all that kind of stuff. And what I lacked in experience, because once you've done all your classes, you still don't have the experience on your resume, right? I knew how to market and brand myself, build my website, get my social media and all this kind of stuff. And I was able to make it so that the casting directors were able to say, oh, I get it. She's perfect for this, especially in the commercial, because that's really how I started, commercial modeling and commercial acting. And then I started helping other actors because they're like, wow, this is really working for you. Can you help me? And then I started a business with my co-founder where we help build online, brands for people that are online dating and for LinkedIn. You may not think about brands that you need a brand essentially, but you need a really good profile photo. You need a good, written profile. And so from there, we were actually going out for funding, and this was 2019. And I was actually on Jason Calacanis's podcast. He's a well-known angel investor. And he said, you need to personally brand people. I think he's like, that's much better than kind of trying to do, everybody. Let's just do some, fewer people, but there's really a need for that. And then an angel investor that was investing in our business was our first client, because we kind of said, hey, this is what we want to do. What are your thoughts? And he's like, I'm game. I'll be your first client. And that was 2019. And then we, obviously 2020 happened, and we, quickly realized that it was the right move, because the other business, no one was going and getting photo shoots. No one was, and so we were primed and ready for the shift that happened. And that's essentially how it happened. So it's kind of, we pivoted before we needed to, and we were primed and ready for the change. So that's how it happened.
Right. And, that's really interesting. You talk about the personal branding, especially during COVID and everything, is that it really kind of took on its own life. Like you really had to be able to, even like with this virtual conversation we're having, right? Mm-hmm. You still really people needed to be able to get comfortable with having those personal connections when you're thousands of miles away from each other.
Yes.
And it has been a very interesting couple of years with that, mm-hmm. Part of, building up those profiles for business, entrepreneurs, and
Mm-hmm.
for us in particular, real estate agents
Real
and
estate
business
agents,
leaders.
yeah. Yeah. And there, I mean, and there's so many, the ways you can utilize it, and you can, I mean, our whole thing is that we don't just, I'm going to set up my profile and it's perfect. And it's interesting because I had a conversation similar to this with somebody that helps you with your kind of your 30-second pitch, if you will. And it can change all the time, who you say you serve, who you can move, and things change. And I think that everybody kind of needs to say, okay, you know what, I'm going to do this. I'm going to create this, my brand per se, but the goal really and truly is to help people. I think that's the key that people lose. They don't think about, they kind of say, okay, look, I'm branded. I have a website. I have my social media things. I might talk about some wins and things that I have, but I don't really ever help people. And the helping is the thing that actually really attracts people. Really, we want to connect with you. Just kind of having what everyone else does. Things are pretty in the real estate market. I sold this house. That's great. But it doesn't really make me want to follow you. So and that's kind of the biggest thing that, you can kind of work on your brand and do all of these things, but you really ultimately need to help people to kind of get to that next level.
Right. And that's interesting. You talk about, the helping people and having that be a part of your brand, and people recognize that is your brand, that you are the educator. Yes. The brand isn't just, your logo and the color scheme that's on your social media page.
I tell that to people all the time. Yeah, it's true. Quite honestly, because you and I were talking a little bit before this, I'm going to tell people that are listening to this, there's so many real estate agents. There's so many, and so few actually do this correctly. Or if they do go down the path of building their, okay, you know what, I need to go and do this. They'll buy a program, they'll do whatever, and they don't do the follow through. Here's the thing. If you actually do it and you actually follow through and you actually help people, you are going to be in such a small group. Do it. Stop and just do it. And that's the biggest thing, because there's some people that don't. And I think that's, go and just do it. Right. Give yourself a swift kick in the butt and do it.
Right. And, when it comes to that, building that personal brand and building up that, that authority capital, I guess you could call it.
Yeah.
It takes time. It's not an overnight thing. So like the return on investment is, you're looking years down the road for that to really build itself up.
Yeah. I mean, it can happen in a shorter amount of time, especially if you are really able to tap into something that people really want to know about. And that's just the basic thing. It's just, and I think also, you're like, okay, my ROI is not going to kick in for 2 years down the road. It's not really going to make me want to jump on it right now. So I think a lot of times you need to just say, you know what? There is somebody out there that literally desperately needs your help. Just go and help them. Get out there, tell people advice. You talk to clients all day long. They ask you questions. Go and shoot some videos, shoot some reels, whatever. I TikTok, whatever you want. But go out there and actually answer those questions as if you were talking to that client, because there are other people out there. And, if you tag that client may share it. Say, hey, so-and-so helped me so much with this, selling my home, buying my home, whatever it is. And but you have to go into it going, you know what, I'm just going to step into this and do this today, because if I help one person, that has, over time that magnifies. So always share those wins, because those are great, but make sure you're actually helping people, because there's so few people that are really in the real estate market that do. I mean, even if you look at really some of the top earners, some of the ones you look at like $1 million list in Los Angeles, and some of these guys, they're not doing that. They're kind of celebrities for celebrity's sake. They're showing all the things that they're doing, but they're not actually saying, okay, you know what, here's some tips to stage your home. Here are some tips to get your home ready to sell, all this kind of stuff. What questions you should ask as a home buyer. I mean, there's so many things. I mean, I moved from from New York to Los Angeles, and There are so many things. When I was buying my first home, let's go back to New York. When I was buying our first apartment in New York, so many things that people, what's the difference between a condo and a co-op? Like if you think of all these questions and things that I would have loved to have had the answer to, that's the kind of thing, give those answers. And when I moved to LA, we started doing a lot of research, and, you've got to do, you want to make sure that your house is safe from earthquakes. What kind of things have been done for the house? So there's all these things for your particular area. So you live in an area with tornadoes, answer questions about that. What should you be looking for? Those are helpful, especially when so many people have been moving these last couple of years. There's like, I know my family moved from California to Texas, near the Panhandle, and they went away from earthquakes, but now they have tornadoes. So like they probably want to know what they should look for when buying a house.
Right. And, it's interesting when you talk about that is, you start asking yourself all those questions and you quickly realize how much content potential you have to turn out. It really starts adding up really quickly.
Yeah.
But I do think, sometimes people almost get overwhelmed with that and like, oh my gosh, how am I going to produce all this stuff? How am I going to get this done? But it doesn't have to be produced. Exactly. Your phone, record a conversation just like this. And it's people are so, I think like YouTube's and the social media out there, they've kind of stripped away that need for the super produced, highly, polished commercial type looking thing.
Oh yeah, definitely. And that's great. Really, if you think about the fact that we have these phones, the capabilities that they have, it's amazing. Use it to your advantage. There's just, you don't have the barriers anymore, and use it to your advantage.
Right. One of the things I saw on, I believe it was maybe your Instagram page, was talking about the CEO branding. And I think that's really interesting because I think that really plays well into real estate because you are, as an agent, you are branding yourself. You're not branding the brokerage.
Right.
And you were, so can you explain a little bit about that, the need to brand the CEO and not necessarily the business, and how that kind of relates to the real estate world?
People want to connect with people. So here's one of the things, because I have friends who are real estate agents, and I'm not always trying to pitch them, but I'm like, hey, you should probably do this. So the business, any business does its own marketing, and you're just thinking, well, that's all I need, especially because you are essentially a private contractor. So it's a slight bit different than a CEO, right? So, it'll always help you as a private contractor, and you definitely shouldn't lean on the fact that, you're the agency that you work for puts your name on a blog on the website once every quarter. Really not going to do anything. So if you go back now to the CEO branding, people want to connect with people. They don't want to connect with this faceless entity. Personally, I am one of those people that will go down that, rabbit hole. I will find the best to work with. I get recommendations. I want to know that if I'm going to be doing something, I'm going to be investing time and money and whatever, I want the best. I want you to be able to answer all my questions. I don't want you to be, I'm not really sure. Like, I want you to be really, really top of your game. And the way that you can instantly do that is by showcasing your expertise. And so as the CEO of a corporation, a lot of times they are passionate about their business. You look at, all of these, giant, big Fortune 500 businesses, they're faceless, they're boring. But if you actually, the CEO saying, this is what we stand for, this is why I'm excited about my business, especially if it's a little bit of a smaller business, but telling them your passion, your why you're there, why that you love helping customers, whatever it is, that's going to make this faceless, stodgy business actually, mean something to somebody, because people want to have something. Everything is all virtual and so many people are stuck on their phones. So you don't get that human to human connection as much anymore, but you can if you actually see people's videos and you see people kind of trying to relate to their ideal clients. And that is how it can relate to a real estate agent. Go out there, just like we were talking about, what people want to know, and show them why you're the best, because people don't know that you're the best. I mean, I know the real estate agent that we got to when we bought this house. Oh my God, the questions we were asking were like, okay. My husband was like, basically, it was like, how many inspections can I do? 30? Great, we're doing them all. Because he's like, I have no idea. We literally had a geological report on the house because he wanted to make sure that it was built on, solid ground, and that it was actually built to withstand an earthquake. And so we did all of those things. And so that's the kind of thing, know your market, and share it. There's so many times, but people really don't know their market. They truly just don't know the area that they're working in. So if you're one of those that doesn't learn, and then if you're one that just knows it because you've been doing it for so long, tell people.
Right. And, by doing that, and kind of you're doing all these different things to kind of start building up that credibility within your market, but it's also kind of setting you on a path to have that successful career, because, especially for agents that are just kind of getting started out, you don't have the full line of, referrals to back you up. It's really that authority and that education and that, that just knowing your market that you have to offer. And so how, what do you say to people that, these steps that you're taking now is really what is setting you up for the future?
If you take a new real estate agent, obviously, if you're new and you don't know a lot about your market, go and learn it. But there's usually a reason why you got into this line of business. Share your why. Why are you, and a lot of times, I've spoken with other real estate agents. They may be new, but they're very passionate. They grew up in a family, of real estate developers or house flippers or whatever it is. And they just really kind of learned the industry and they really loved it. And they want to help people get into houses. Sometimes people are like, I saw my parents make really bad decisions when they bought these houses and they got taken. I want to make sure that people don't get taken. So you may not know all of these little specifics about necessarily like your specific area per se, but learn. But if there's something that you're really passionate about, like I'm going to make sure that you don't get taken. I'm going to make sure that, I walk through the paperwork with you. I'm going to make sure that you know everything. And that's just share your why, share your passion, share the reason you're in it to help people. Most of the time, whenever I've really spoken to real estate agents, like they're all just so passionate in a different way. There's a reason why they're doing what they're doing, and share it. There's a story. People love stories, and the storytelling aspect of sharing your messaging, that is what connects to people, because they had somebody that was taken. They had somebody that made a bad choice, and so they're like, oh my God, me too. I'm going to hit that follow button, and I'm going to recommend you for somebody if when it comes down. But it starts with storytelling and sharing.
Right. And I think that's a really interesting point, is that, a lot of times when you talk to people and you say, you need to tell me who you are. And a lot of people are like, well, I'm just not that interesting. There's just not a whole lot of interesting about me. But if you talk to 100 people, there are probably, every one of those people isn't going to relate to the same thing, but they're going to relate to one thing that you talk about, and I think that's one of those. I was a video journalist before I got into doing this. And so every day I was meeting new people and talking to different people for our stories. And it blew me, I could be talking to a, police officer about something, but learn something completely different, that he was totally into, coaching youth sports and all this. And everybody is so multifaceted that you can, especially for real estate agents, take away just that I'm a real estate agent. Tell me who you are, kind of peel back the onion a bit.
Yeah. And there may be something else that you're very passionate about. Like you love to eat out, you always go to the latest and greatest restaurants. So be like, I'm going to tell you the latest and greatest restaurants in my area. So there's ways you can share things about you that make you really excited, that aren't related to real estate, that can also attract another group of people everyone at some point will need, whether you're buying, renting, selling, whatever, you need a real estate agent. So attract them with something else too, but just be human.
Right. One of the things, when it comes to the personal brand and just marketing in general, I think a lot of times people get, overwhelmed with a lot of the different things. So they'll start to, and maybe their business does take off a little bit and they just get really bogged down with the actually, completing these transactions, and they'll start almost ignoring that personal brand. And maybe they started it and they just kind of like, it's online, I'm going to leave it there for a while, but they're not constantly working on it. How detrimental can that be to one's, career trajectory or their name recognition and just their career in general?
Basically, the marketing, personal brand is marketing, right? An element of it is marketing. And marketing has a compounding effect. So the more you're adding to it, you're going up, up, up. When you stop adding to it, it kind of levels off and it'll eventually go down. So keep adding to it. Even if it slows down a little bit, keep adding to it, because it may not go like this, it may go like this, but it's still going up. I see it happen all day, every day with me, with my clients, and that's how I know. And it's interesting. Sometimes people are like, I can't deal with this anymore. Or, I do group coaching, and sometimes people kind of like, they're like, I'm too overwhelmed. I can't do this. And they stop. And it's kind of sad because it just does start to taper off.
Yeah. So. And, you're talking about the coaching. And I think a lot of times maybe that's just, sometimes people just need that accountability aspect in things to really kind of push them and say, hey, you know what, just keep going with us. And I think a lot of times also, for the agents, I was talking to somebody a couple of weeks ago, and he does media classes. He's out in Toronto. And so he has agents that come in, he helps them produce their videos. And he's like, these people, by the time, they're in it for a couple of weeks and they can do this on their own. And like, why are you still coming to me? And they say, because I wouldn't do it if I didn't have you. I would, disappoint if I didn't show up.
Yeah. The accountability is very key. I am constantly like, way too many things on my plate. But there's certain things that will take precedence. And when you kind of like have that, something you're accountable to, whether it's a coach or whatever it is, it'll make you be like, okay, I've got to crack off a couple hours a week, whatever it is, to make this happen. So accountability is key.
Right. And just kind of wrapping up, we talked about how you guys really pivoted right around, the time of COVID, and how everything really kind of shifted with the way businesses interacted. Where do you see things kind of going in the next couple of years? Because, as things kind of start to, I don't know if it'll ever go back to the way it was, because I think this virtual thing is just kind of part of our lives now.
I have a similar conversation. We're kind of talking about this. And, I have a podcast myself, and I've literally had people from all over the world, from Australia, couple of people from Australia, Germany, and I wouldn't want to make it so narrow so that like you have to sit in this room with me across from me. Because God really just keeps everything so narrow. So I don't see it going back, because now we were like, wow, I have like the world at my fingertips. We've got clients in the UK. So I personally wouldn't go back and make it just very, very niche. And you have to get on a plane to go meet somebody and things like that. I think take advantage of both, but I don't see it going back. And that's kind of one of the things too, is that, the real estate business is very in person. So it was really hard when you had to only be virtual, but take advantage, because there are people that are kind of like, ooh, thank God that's over. And they're all going back and they're putting all the eggs in the basket of being in person. Don't, have a fallback plan, but also take advantage, because people aren't. Whenever you find a gap in the market, take advantage of it. When people aren't taking advantage of something that people should be taking advantage of, then take advantage of it. So if you become like kind of, you'll do virtual and you will talk to clients or people from all over the world, country, whatever. People are moving. They definitely moved a lot in 2020 and 2021. But and people moving from all over the place, and they find you, then they're like, you know what? I know that I can talk to whoever, Jane, whoever, I could talk to you virtually and you'll be able to help me. You're not going to be fumbling with how to use Zoom. You're not going to be fumbling with the tech. You show up, you are online all the time, you help people. And when I'm moving to this area, and personally, I would rather do a lot of my, groundwork, lay down everything before I actually arrive. And I think you're the person for that. So there's so many ways that technology can help in the real estate market and the real estate business. I don't see it going back. And the people that identify those gaps and identify those needs before a big group of people do are actually going to be able to take advantage of it and see the benefit, faster ROI.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting. I've talked to several people that have really their business has really expanded over the last couple of years by doing, becoming that relocation expert. And, they're getting clients from all over the world. I've talked to several people in Miami because they've really done, they've really gotten into producing videos about the specific areas in the city, and people will find them and, hey, you know what? That's our guy. He knows, he's the one. We searched him. We found these places on YouTube. He popped up. That's who we want to use now. And he's talking to these people and setting deals, and he's never met them in person. He's doing calls with them, going and showing them virtually.
Know, like, and trust. That's what they feel, that because they feel like, I've seen you on video. I've seen what you do for other clients. I've seen all of this sort of stuff. And I believe you're the one to help me. And just show people why, and they'll come to you, and show those wins, show other happy clients and people that you've actually helped do this exact same process. I mean, I personally, if I was relocating, I would do the exact same thing. Yeah. I would find somebody that's the expert.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me. How can, people that are listening that are wanting to get more on the personal branding, how can they find you?
The best place to find me is clairebahn.com, ClaireBahn.com. Everything is there. So I have lots of blogs, you find YouTube videos there. You can find podcast episodes where I talk about personal branding and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I also do a free masterclass just to really lay that foundation for your personal brand. So lots and lots of stuff to find on my website.
Awesome. Well, thank you again so much for taking the time to talk to us.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
I really want to thank Claire for joining us today. Real estate by its nature is a person-to-person business, so having a strong personal brand is vital to your marketing and business success. So once again, if you think you or someone else on your team has an awesome story or a tip to share with our community, send us a message at feedback@smartagents.com. Well, that wraps things up for this episode, but remember, follow the show wherever you listen to podcasts and make sure to subscribe to the Smart Agents YouTube channel. Again, I'm Michael Walter, and we'll see you on the next episode.